to take a look at stories making the headlines in Nigerian newspapers. I have with me in the studio CEO CKN News, Chris Kendingwadu, and public affairs analyst Ayodeji Onigbogi. Good morning, gentlemen.
Nice to
Happy Valentine's Day, and you're not in red.
Yes, well, you are representing us. It's nice to be here.
All right, so let's head straight to the papers now. And I begin with the News Direct. Tension in Bayelsa State over Supreme Court sack of David Lyon election victory. No one will be sworn in Oshiomhole. On the front page of the Blueprint, ahead Diri's inauguration, tension in Bayelsa as Oshiomhole dares Supreme Court says it's either Lyon or nobody. Why we ruled in Diri's favor, Apex Court. PDP says it's victory for democracy, supporters in wild jubilation. Stay off Bayelsa, PDP, Dixon won Oshiomhole. All right, and to the front page of the Daily Times, Bayelsa governorship, APC, PDP differ over Lyon sack by Supreme Court. It will be legally wrong to swear in Dwoye Diri as governor Oshiomhole. Judgment will not deter us from pursuing justice in Imo, PDP. And finally, on the front page of the Daily Trust, suspense over Supreme Court judgment on Bayelsa. Speaker Obolo may be sworn in as acting governor today. Nobody will be inaugurated Oshiomhole. PDP congratulates the Diri. Fresh election looms lawyer. We are yet to get court order, INEC. Gentlemen, we'll be looking at this story, talking about the Bayelsa government, the ruling by the Supreme Court yesterday, and all the newspapers seems to be talking about it this morning. It came as a shock to everyone. I mean, after they were having rehearsals, looking forward towards the inauguration that was supposed to take place this morning, even though we don't know yet who will be inaugurated and if there will be an inauguration today, because the governor has to vacate office today. So, and then we have the Supreme Court judgment. I wonder how it came to you. I'll start with you, first of all. How the judgment came to you. Was it a surprise? Was it something?
It wasn't a surprise. And when I say it wasn't a surprise, either we like it or not, the Supreme Court is the Supreme Court. Whatever they say is the final. That's the apex court in Nigeria.
Absolutely.
Because we could remember probably like just a month ago, they did the same in Imo, and APC laughed. So now they are doing the same thing, the same Supreme Court, and PDP is laughing. So why is everybody, why are we saying that there's tension? I don't think there's any tension. In life, you cannot win in all. APC should have something at the back of the mind that you cannot win in all. If you have won Imo through the Supreme Court, and now you are losing.
This is not a compensation.
I'm not saying it's a compensation.
Because some persons are saying.
What I'm saying is that Supreme Court is the final. So if, as a country, as a people, we've accepted that Supreme Court is the final, when they passed the Imo judgment, we felt that it was the final. Now, the same Supreme Court has passed
the judgment
in Bayelsa. And people are crying. It shouldn't be. It's only if you are saying that Supreme Court or the people at the Supreme Court, they don't merit.
It didn't state categorically who was going to, take over as the governor-elect, because it says that the person with the second highest votes and geographical spread. And a lot of persons have come out to say that even the PDP candidate did not meet up to this requirement.
Then let's leave everything to INEC. INEC is the umpire. So let INEC decide, based on the Supreme Court judgments, who wins. That's all.
All right, let's call our baby lawyer in now. CKN, interpret to us what you make of this ruling by the Supreme Court.
Well, the Supreme Court has made a judgment, has given this judgment. Then there are also provisions in the law, in our Constitution, in Section 187, Subsection 1 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, was quite specific on how someone becomes a governor or deputy governor and the rest. And it's a joint ticket. So yes. So whatever happens to
one,
happens to all. Then also, when you go to Section 177 of the Nigerian 1999 Constitution too, as amended, it also specifies who qualifies to be to run for the office of a governor, vis-a-vis also the deputy governor, and that talks about being a Nigerian, your qualification, and it's so funny that all you need to vie for an office of that nature is just a secondary school certificate.
I wonder.
Yes, and when you say secondary school certificate, we are not even saying that you should have A1 in all the subjects.
Just
attempt to have the certificate that you you partook in this school start exam, and that's home and dry. And that is why the issue of the deputy governor is just too terrible to come by, because when you look at, he presented about 4 different names in 4 different certificates. His MBA, his secondary school bear a different one, the one of the university bear one, school start different, primary school. So
different names.
Yes, and some people say they didn't see it coming. Some of us saw it coming because there's been a pronouncement initially by a high court saying that this shouldn't be. But they went on appeal, and there was a stay of execution of that. And based on that, he went into. So my problem is that those that were screening,
that's where the question is.
Those that were screening the candidates, what were they doing? Then also, I know that before you participate in an election, especially within that level, presidential and governorship, there's what we call security check, and what do they say? What do they check on? Is it just the person, or is it not supposed to be a holistic cross-check of the certificate and everything about the person? So whether there's going to be a governor in Bayelsa, so definitely there's going to be a governor. I don't know who is going to be.
Today?
Today,
because
yes.
Today is supposed to
definitely,
be.
Yes, definitely. By the constitution, today, there must be a governor. But good enough, INEC just announced just a few hours ago that they've received the Supreme Court judgment and they're studying it, and they'll come out today with a pronouncement on that. Whatever happens, whether it's a PDP, whatever, somebody must
occupy that
office today. There cannot be a vacuum.
All right, let's leave it here now, gentlemen. Thank you for your contribution on the newspaper review.
All right, it's time to take a look at stories making the headlines in Nigerian newspapers. I have with me in the studio CEO CKN News, Chris Kendo Wandu, and public affairs analyst Ayodeji Onigbogi, right?
Yeah,
all right. Thank you very much. All right, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us in discussing this now. Looking at newspapers this morning, we'll start with the News Direct. It says here, tension in Bayelsa State over Supreme Court sack of David Lyon, election victory. Oshiomhole says no one will be sworn in. The Blueprint says ahead Diri's inauguration, tension in Bayelsa as Oshiomhole dares Supreme Court, says it's either Lyon or nobody. While we ruled in Diri's favor, says Apex Court, PDP says it's victory for democracy. Supporters in wild jubilation. Stay of Bayelsa, PDP, Dixon warns Oshiomhole. The Daily Times says Bayelsa governorship tussle. APC PDP differ over Lyon's sack by Supreme Court. It will be legally wrong to swear in Diri as governor, says Oshiomhole. Judgment will not deter us from pursuing justice in Imo, says PDP. The Daily Trust says suspense over Supreme Court judgment. Bayelsa Speaker Obunobla may be sworn in as acting governor today. Nobody will be inaugurated, says Oshiomhole. PDP congratulates Diri. Fresh election looms, that's according to lawyer. We're yet to get court order, says INEC. The Nation newspaper says here, Lyon out, Diri hopeful as INEC reviews judgment. Supreme Court nullifies Bayelsa governor-elect's victory. The Punch says uncertainty surrounds Bayelsa governor as South Supreme Court sacks APC Lyon. Governor-elect sacks for deputies forged certificates. PDP candidate didn't score 25% of lawful voters. Oshiomhole. INEC to study judgment. Awaits commission lawyers' advice. The Guardian says here, confusion as Supreme Court voids Lyon's victory in Bayelsa State. Yes, we'll look at the story in the Daily Trust. Of course, suspense over Supreme Court judgment on Bayelsa. Speaker Obulo may be sworn in as acting governor today. Nobody will be inaugurated, says Oshiomhole. PDP congratulates Diri. Fresh election looms, that's according to lawyer. We're yet to get court order, says INEC. That's in the Daily Trust this morning. So, looking at this, gentlemen, what do you think? Now, the speaker may be sworn in, according to this newspaper, as governor, as acting governor. Is that true? Is that right?
Well, constitutionally, if there's any kind of logjam in who becomes the governor of the state, there's definitely the speaker is the next person in line. But I don't see that happening today. Sincerely, I don't see that happening because we shouldn't preempt what INEC is going to do. The judgment was very, very specific. and it was a sound judgment, depending on where you're looking at it. So a legal interpretation will be given to that judgment. Good enough, INEC has received the judgment from Supreme Court. So by the end of today, they'll come up with a position which definitely I know will put pay to this. The only aspect I don't seem to agree with is the inflammatory statement of the national chairman of APC, Oshiomhole, which seems to be pouring more petrol into the fire. That shouldn't be coming from a statesman like him. That is unbecoming of him. He should know he was a former governor, two-time governor, and he should realize now that he's a nationalist and shouldn't be seen himself from just the point of the leader of a party. Okay, whatever statement he makes can cause a lot of damage, and he shouldn't be seeing himself as the president of NLC any longer. He is now national chairman of the biggest party in Nigeria, probably the biggest party in the whole of Africa, in Africa. So we shouldn't be making that kind of statement. Okay. The Supreme Court has given its judgment. It is not for him to question if he has anything against that. There are other avenues and channels of passing his information.
All right. Let me go to Ayodeji now. Do we expect to see crisis or fresh elections anytime soon? Is there a possibility that INEC might come up and say, okay, let's have a fresh election in Bayelsa State?
Let's wait for INEC. They've received the ruling from the Supreme Court. Yeah. Let them study it. At least, hopefully today, they should come with their own position. They should come with their position. And I'm very sure their position will determine the way forward. If there will be a fresh election or the next candidate will be sworn in. Everything is left to the umpire. They are the one that holds the knife and they hold the yarn. Because now the message has been passed across to INEC. And let's give them today. But what happens if they cannot conclude today? The states cannot be in a vacuum. So if they don't give us their position before the close of business today, probably the possibility of swearing in somebody might arise. Because the current governor of Bayelsa, his tenure lapses. So definitely there must be
a continuation.
There must be a continuation. So there must somebody that must step in as the acting governor or the substantive governor today.
I'm sure no one wants to be in INEC shoes at this point.
No. It's not that nobody wants to be in INEC shoes. It's just like you've been.
No, they're saddled with the responsibility to decide today. So their decision might make or mar the state.
Yeah. That's the truth. So you must give it a verdict. So let's be hopeful. The time is very young. We're just like 7:30. But they've not even resumed. So let's allow them to resume, have the meeting, then they come up with a communique for us.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you very much for talking to us on this issue.
Thank you very much.
It's time to take a look at stories making the headlines in Nigerian newspapers, and I have with me in the studio CEO CKN News Chris Kehinde-Nwadu and public affairs analyst Ayodeji Onigbogi. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast. All right, so we'll head straight to the papers now, and I begin with the news direct. Tension in Bayelsa State over Supreme Court sack of David Lyon election victory. No one will be sworn in, Oshiomhole. And to the front page of the blueprint, ahead Diri's inauguration, tension in Bayelsa as Oshiomhole dares Supreme Court. Says it's either Lyon or nobody. Why we ruled in Diri's favor, Apex Court. PDP says it's victory for democracy, supporters in wild jubilation. State of Bayelsa, PDP Dixon won Oshiomhole. And on the front page of the Daily Times, Bayelsa governorship, APC, PDP differ over Lyon sack by Supreme Court. It be legally wrong to swearing Duoye Diri as governor, Oshiomhole. Judgment will not deter us from pursuing justice in Imo, PDP. On the front page of the Daily Trust now, suspense if the Supreme Court judgment on Bayelsa. Speaker Obolo may be sworn in as acting governor today. Nobody will be inaugurated, Oshiomhole. PDP congratulates Diri. Fresh election looms, lawyer. We are yet to get court order, INEC. On the front page of the Nation newspaper, Lyon out, Diri hopeful as INEC reviews judgment. Supreme Court nullifies Bayelsa governor-elect's victory. To the Punch newspaper, uncertainty surrounds Bayelsa governor as Supreme Court sacks APC Lyon. Governor-elect sacked for deputies forged certificates. PDP candidate didn't score 25% of lawful votes, Oshiomhole. INEC to study judgment awaits commission lawyers' advice. And on the front page of the Guardian newspaper, confusion as Supreme Court voids Lyon's victory in Bayelsa. APC will reverse verdict, Oshiomhole declares. Wike wants him cautioned to overcome it. PDP hails decision, insists on review of Imo's case. INEC awaits enrolled court order for compliance. Gentlemen, all right, a majority of the stories, all the papers this morning are reporting the Supreme Court judgment of yesterday. And that has raised concerns on the lips of a lot of many Nigerians that with regards to issues of electoral reforms, 20 years of democracy, and we see that it seems that the sanctity of the ballot box is beginning to, be eroded because we see the courts determining what these days. What are the implications on our democracy? I'll start with you, CKM.
Yes, the implication is that if care is not taken, as time goes on, people just refuse to come out to vote. Yes, and that will affect a lot of things. Because if you look at it from this point, if the vote of the APC has been voided by the Supreme Court, that is about 230,000 votes. That means you disqualified or disfranchised 230,000 people that voted for that political party.
And one vote counts.
A single vote counts. Then your 230,000 had been voided. That is a very huge one. So people will be disappointed, and within the local palace now is a normal say that our vote doesn't count. So what is
why should I come out to vote?
And INEC have been doing so much in enlightening people to come out to vote, because part of the problem we have is in the past is voting apathy.
Yes.
You see, on election day, young people they'll be playing football, people will be going about their duties, those will be watching television, and the rest of the people. We've been trying to make sure that people come out to vote. But what has been happening, it's happening in Imo. And you saw what happened in Imo.
Now it's
in Bayelsa. It happened in Zamfara.
Yes.
In Rivers, APC also was. So it's a big problem. So I think there's the need for us to take a holistic look at our electoral system and start to make sure that all the necessary things that we need to do to make sure that this system works, we have to do it. Starting with INEC, then the political parties, then even the voters, then before we get to the court. Then apart from even the court, also we so much militarize our electoral system. A state is voting and you have over 30,000, 40,000 police security operatives and the rest of them. So that in itself intimidates people from coming out to vote. So there's a lot we need to do. So we need to look at the electoral reform by Justice Uwais. We also have to look at the law passed by the National Assembly, which the President has not assented to. If we can be able to get all those together, then I think we'll be able to make some level of inroad. Then we should also look at independent candidacy, because that is the problem we have now. The political parties have a way of choking people, forcing candidates on the party, and most often than not, what they pick, especially those picked by the godfathers, are not the right people that the people wanted. And once you do that, there is division. Then after the primaries, people scattered and start going to other political parties. And so all this put together, that is why nobody should blame the judiciary. People have been blaming the judiciary. I cannot blame the judiciary.
Really?
Yes, I can't. Because if the political parties have gotten their acts right, then there will be no need to go to the courts.
All right, let's get your point of your perspective to this issue now. If we are to reforms, from your own point of view, where should we begin? And again, what lessons should political parties and even politicians learn from all of this that we have seen in recent times?
If you look at what is on ground, it's a process that had issues. For Bayelsa State, if the people that did the screening, if they've done what is expected,
due diligence,
it wouldn't have gotten to this level. Then the issue of godfatherism, forcing people on the populace, if that is not what is on ground, it will have gotten the best from the pack. So what do we need to study from what we have on ground is all political parties, they should at all times, if they want to still be the party, the ruling party, they must pick the best candidate available. And the process, the selection process, must be fair enough so that as a party, people will not break away to other parties. And then by the time they are breaking away, they are going with some chunk of people. And then for the populace to have the belief in INEC and the process, the election process, it was gotten to a stage whereby for every vote to count in Nigeria, we should try and look at the voting through the electronic systems, so that people don't need to come out to say they're coming to, but they know that anywhere you are,
they can vote
you can vote, and your vote will count. That's like what we said. If over 230,000 people vote will not be counting, after wasting their time on those days, because sometimes in Lagos, I remember we voted on Saturday, we voted on Sunday. Yeah. So I don't know, probably it took them 2-3 days to conclude their voting. So at the end of the day, some section of people, their votes will not count. The next time we are voting, they will not be, they will not have the wherewithal to say they are coming out to vote. So we should get our processes right, so as to encourage people and not to discourage the voting candidates and the public.
All right, gentlemen, we'll leave it here now. Thank you so much for your contribution on the newspaper review this morning.